Hi. If you've started to look at bringing drones into your classroom, you may have also started to look at the risk assessment process, or maybe you're putting that off until a little bit later. So I thought I'd give you a few tips on how we can reduce the risk of anything nasty happening while we're using drones in the classroom. So that we know that a risk profile is based on likelihood and consequence. So if we reduce either of those, then we're going to reduce the risk. So let's have a look at a couple of different options. First of all, at reducing a consequence. So what are the potential consequences of using drones in a classroom, or the negative consequences at least? All right, so first of all, a couple of different size drones, for example. So the Mambo, also the Tello is a similar size here, a lightweight drone. Next step up is the Spark, and perhaps there's other options as well, either smaller or larger than this. Now, a consequence of something not so good happening in terms of using either of those drones is that the drone comes into contact with a person or property. So how do we reduce the impact of that if it does in fact occur? Well, so one of the first things that we can do is to make sure that we have propeller guards installed on the drones. So that's going to reduce the impact of propellers causing damage to people or property. Now, the next thing that we can do, and we should always do anyway, is to make sure that we maintain a separation distance between people who are using the drones and the drones themselves. So if we're doing this in a gymnasium, for example, I like to use painter's tape on the floor, or if you've already got basketball court markings or something like that, you can use that to designate a safe space and an area where you fly. Now, part of this is also education. So by training the students to understand that if a drone goes into an area where it shouldn't be, or if it's close to people, that the immediate actions on is to land. It's not to try and fly it back somewhere else, it's just to land and leave it there. Now, another thing that we can do is to look at making sure that anyone that moves into the space is aware of what's going on. So I like to use safety signs on doors and windows outside the area where we are operating, so that people know what's going on, and that we're therefore going to reduce the likelihood of someone coming into that space and then putting themselves in danger. Now, what else can we do? So the propellers can cause an issue if they were to dislodge themselves from the drone in flight. Now, the key thing here, and I guess it's across everything that we do with drones, is to use the smallest drone that is going to meet your learning objectives. So smaller drones have smaller propellers. Now, also, if they happen to fly off the drone, they're also going to go a shorter distance. So something like the Mambo, for example, if a propeller gets dislodged and it comes off at a takeoff, for example, it's only going to go 1 to maybe 2 meters. Something like a Phantom, so a much larger drone, if a propeller gets dislodged, you're looking about a 5-meter distance, so that you need to think about that in terms of separation. Now, the other thing that we need to do is to look at wearing safety glasses. So for me, anytime when there is a battery inside a drone, anywhere in the learning space, then all glasses are on faces. And that goes for me when I'm working outside with my larger drones as well. Even if it's sunny, so it doesn't matter, I want my eyes protected, because the last thing that we want to happen is to have a propeller in the eye. Now, another thing is these propellers can get caught in hair, giving you a fascinator that's not necessarily wanted. All right, again, if we're maintaining our separation distance, this is not going to be an issue, but otherwise I like to make sure that everybody has their hair tied back at all times. It's just like working in a chemistry lab, or perhaps a woodwork workshop or something like that as well. So glasses on, hair tied back, and keeping a distance from the equipment. Now, the last thing to look at is your batteries. So the batteries that we use in drones are lithium polymer batteries, and it's important to keep those safely inside a fireproof bag. So we are reducing the chance of, if they do for whatever reason catch fire, that we're reducing the chance of that spreading. So we'll keep it contained within the bag or in a fireproof cabinet. So hopefully that helps give you a couple of ideas about how to reduce the likelihood of something occurring, and certainly the consequence of that impact and the overall risk profile of the activity.